Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. I welcome you all to the daily quiz video for the day. But before we begin the quiz, a couple of important announcements. Number one, this weekend on Saturday 9th of July, we are bringing to you a free of cost workshop where we will be discussing in detail the UPSC Civil Services Exam Syllabus. This is a free of cost workshop exclusively on the BYJU'S Exam Prep app. So make sure that you download the app and you can also register for this session by using the registration link given in the description of the video. This will be in English language. Also tomorrow in the evening at 8 p.m. on our YouTube channel of BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS, we bring you a detailed analysis of the Roe versus Wade Supreme Court case of the US and also the abortion laws across the world with a specific focus on India. Do join in for that also. It's going to be a live session on the YouTube channel. Now let's begin the quiz with question number 1 on your screen. Consider the following statements with regards to the G20. Number 1. It does not have a permanent secretariat or headquarters. Second, it is an informal group of 19 countries in the European Union with representatives of the IMF and the World Bank. Third, the US, which held the G20 presidency in 2008, elevated the meeting of the finance ministers and the central bank governors to the heads of state, which resulted in the first ever G20 summit. Which of these given statements is or are correct? The correct answer here is D. All the three given statements about the G20 summit are correct. The reason why it is in the news, as you know, is the government of India has decided to hold the G20 summit meetings in Jammu and Kashmir as well as in the Union Territory of Ladakh. It is very significant because India and Chinese troops have been involved in a border standoff in the eastern Ladakh region since May 2020. And thus, having such an important meeting, having international leaders come in Ladakh would be an extremely significant step to strengthen India's position. India assumes the presidency of the G20 on December 1 this year, and our external minister will reach Bali in Indonesia to participate in the G20 summit on July 7 and 8, which will be a foreign ministers meeting. Next, question number 2. Consider the following statements. Number 1. Critical minerals are elements that are the building blocks of essential modern day technologies and are at a risk of supply chain disruptions. Second, based on their individual needs and strategic considerations, different countries create their own list of critical minerals. Third, India and Mongolia have recently decided to strengthen their partnership in the field of projects and supply chain for critical minerals. Which of these given statements is or are correct? First and the second statements are correct. The third statement is wrong, and that is why the answer here is A. The third statement is wrong because actually it is India and Australia that have signed an agreement focusing specially on the supply chain for critical minerals which are mainly found in China. This article in the Indian Express says that India and Australia have decided to strengthen their partnership in this particular regard. As part of his tour of Australia, our Union Coal and Mines Minister Mr. Prahlad Joshi met his counterpart, and thereafter it was confirmed that the two sides will sign a 3-year partnership specifically for critical minerals and the supply chain. As we discussed, different countries regard different minerals in this list, but mainly they include lithium, graphite, cobalt, etc., which are used for a lot of applications, including the electronic vehicle batteries, and also there are rare earth minerals which are included in this list. China has created a kind of a monopoly of these minerals with over half of the world's production of such minerals coming from China. Also, China in 2010 had actually suspended its export of rare earth minerals to Japan for a couple of months over a territorial dispute, which made the entire world realize how China has a stranglehold over these rare earth metals. Next, question number 3. Consider the following statements. Number 1. Generally, there has been a gradual decline in per capita cereal consumption in India. Second, as per the NSSO's household consumption of various goods and services in India 2011-12 report, rice consumption per person per month has fallen in urban India but has increased in the rural areas. Third, as per the food grain stocking norms of the Food Corporation of India, a stock of 275.8 lakh tons has to be maintained on July 1 every year. Which of these given statements is or are correct? The correct answer here is C. 1 and 3. These two statements are correct. The second statement is wrong because the survey actually shows that the rice consumption has declined both in the rural areas as well as in the urban areas. So a common trend is being seen in both these areas, that is a population going away from the food grains that we are usually dependent on. The first and the third statements are correct. The reason why we are discussing this question is because of this article in the Indian Express today, according to which the consumption of wheat as well as rice has been declining in India generally in the past decade or so. There can be many reasons for that, mainly because a lot of people are now becoming health conscious, ditching carbohydrates, and opting for other alternatives to be included in their diet. That is why the government of India has realized this in this particular report. Also, procurement of the government has also fallen down for wheat, specifically because the wheat production has also come down because of the severe heat wave that we have seen in the country. Next, question number 4. Consider the following statements with regards to electric vehicles. Number 1. The Indian government has launched the EV 30 at 30 initiative to give a push to electric vehicle sales in the country. Second, India does not have enough lithium reserves for manufacturing lithium ion batteries. Third, the Ministry of Power has prescribed at least one charging station to be present in a grid of 3 kilometers and every 25 kilometers on both sides of the highways. Which of these given statements is or are correct? The correct answer here is B. 2 and 3 are correct. The first statement is wrong. India is a part of this initiative EV 30 by 30, but it's actually a global initiative taken up by an international think tank. Under this initiative, the countries are aiming that by 2030, of all the vehicles that are sold in the country, 30% of those shall be electric vehicles. That is the entire idea. But this is not an Indian government initiative, we are a part of it. Second and the third statements are correct about the electric vehicles and their sales in India. The reason why we are discussing this is because of an unfortunate news under which the government has now set up panel to suggest certification because increasing number of electric vehicles are actually catching fire. Initially, it was mainly the two-wheelers that were catching fire mainly across the country. But now, a Tata Nexon car has also caught fire, that is the EV version in Maharashtra last month. This is the first major instance of a passenger vehicle catching fire in India. Nexon, as you know, is the largest selling electric vehicle in the country, and India has about 30,000 EV Nexons on the road right now. That is why it has become a concern, and now the government is thinking that we should actually give certification to those vehicles which are sold in the EV category. Next, we have a previous year question from 2021. Consider the following statements in respect of the 32nd Summer Olympics. Number 1. The official motto for this Olympics is a new world. Second, sport climbing, surfing, skateboarding, karate and baseball are included in this Olympics. Which of these given statements is or are correct? Now, this was a surprising question because students don't really expect questions from the field of sports to be asked in the UPSC Prelims. But last year was different. We actually had more than one question from the category of sports. The correct answer here is B. First statement is wrong. The second statement is correct. The first statement is wrong because the theme of the Olympics was actually united by emotions. The second statement is correct. All these sports mentioned in the second statement were actually included in Olympics and were a part of the competition. Next, we have a fact of the day, and today we will be discussing about India's trade deficit, which has reached an all-time high level. The story is that in 2021-22, India's exports had touched a record mark of $400 billion. It was even advertised by the government to a large extent. But now we have seen that the exports from the country are gradually slowing down, as a result of which our trade deficit is reaching a fresh peak. India's exports were surging last year, where the imports are also rising, but now the problem is that the total exports is actually coming down. Our total exports, as compared to the pre-COVID level of $313 billion in 2019-20, had actually reached $422 billion in 2021-22. But imports have touched a fresh high of $613 billion now, as compared to $475 billion in the pre-pandemic era. So it's not so much about the reduction in export. It is mostly about increase in import that our trade deficit has actually come at an all-time high. India's trade deficit in the financial year, just in the first quarter, has already hit $70 billion. Means on an average, our monthly trade deficit, if you consider only one quarter, is $23.3 billion, which is very, very high. Before this, our monthly trade deficit record was $22.9 billion in November 2021. Now, there are various reasons why our imports are actually going higher and higher with every passing month. It is said that Russia's continuing conflict with Ukraine has had a major role to play because the commodity prices globally are actually increasing and so is the inflation. Our exports have been lackluster because of slowdown in the external demand. There has been a weakness in the demands in engineering products, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, etc. Our petroleum products are also running at a very, very high cost, and our increased import of petroleum products also is hurting India's trade deficit. Imports have mainly been fueled by energy sources, that is coal and oil, and there's also a supply chain crunch of coal domestically, which is why even our coal imports have shot up multiple times, along with the import of gold, which has also come at an all-time high. All these factors taken combined have ensured that India's trade deficit has reached an all-time high, which is a major cause of concern for India because of the outgoing foreign reserves that no country would like. This is it for today's daily video. Thank you so much for watching.